Bit by bit, I'm going to show images and talk about teratomas. And I don't only read medical journals, I also read magazines. And in magazines, teratomas are described really sensational. This is an article from the Washington Post from 2015 describing a woman in her 20s who had a teratoma in her pineal region. And they mentioned that René Descartes called the pineal region the principal seat of the soul. And the tumor turned out to be the evil twin, according to this article. And teratomas are germ cell tumors containing all three layers, so ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. And the tissue has matured, but it's not really organized. And to be honest, a teratoma is more like a minion than like a twin. And teratomas can occur anywhere along the midline, and only a few percent occur in the central nervous system. Teratomas can be divided into mature teratomas with well-differentiated tissue. That's the majority of teratomas. They can occur in childhood and in adults. Then there are immature teratomas with tissue that resembles fetal tissue. And there are teratomas with malignant transformation that arise from immature teratomas. This is an example of a mature teratoma occurring in the midline in a child, and you can see on CT that there is calcification and fat with low density, and on the T1 weighted MR image you can see the high signal intensity of the fat. And on surgery they found a mass with fully developed teeth, some tongue, sebaceous tissue, so it was really matured. The pathogenesis of germ cell tumors has been discussed in the previous Brain Bit by Bit. And I had explained the theory how the germ cells migrate out of the embryo into the yolk sac during gastrulation, and then later during embryology back into the embryo along the midline into the genital ridge. And if they get lost somewhere, they can give rise to germ cell tumors, for example, teratomas, or for example, germinomas. An alternative theory is also an embryological one, and in that theory there's something wrong with the primitive streak. And you might remember these images from med school when you have the bilaminar embryonic disc and cells migrate through the primitive streak, giving rise to the third layer of mesoderm. And if something goes wrong with the migration of cells through the primitive streak, this can lead to the formation of a teratoma. And the nice thing about this alternative theory is that it provides an explanation why teratomas occur more often in the sacrococcygeal region, which is the end of the primitive streak. Independent of which theory you favor, there is the embryonic development. There are different types of germ cells and different types of germ cell tumors derived from the cells in different stages. And a teratoma is more mature than a germinoma. So a germinoma has more proliferative potential, so it's more sensitive to radiation and chemotherapy. And germinomas have a 5-year survival of more than 90% with radiation and chemotherapy. But because teratomas consist of non-dividing cells, they are less sensitive to radiation and chemotherapy, and therefore surgery is the primary option. So this is the case we started with, and post-surgery there was no residual tumor, so that was good. This is another case of an 8-year-old boy. On the CT you can see again a very large tumor. Teratomas are usually not a detection problem with calcifications and fatty components. On post-contrast MRI, you can see enhancing parts. And on the sagittal T2 weighted image, you can see invasion of the thalamus by the teratoma. And although surgery is the best option because they are so large and because of the structures involved, the operative mortality for teratomas in the first year is pretty high. And in this patient, he survived, and this is the macroscopy, and you can see some hairs in this teratoma. In the differential diagnosis, if there's no enhancement of fatty mass in the midline with calcifications, you can think of a dermoid cyst, and we're going to talk about that in the next Brain Bit by Bit.